Welcome back to Media 7. We try and take a broad view of the media on this program. It's not only the TV news and the papers, it's film, books and blogs. But here's one place in the media landscape we're visiting for the first time. Tanks in the West End of London. They said it would come to this. But no, actually it's just another big premiere at a cinema in Leicester Square, with the usual interviews with cast and director. But here's the thing, it's not a movie, it's a video game, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. No, we're not talking about this kind of video game, or even this kind. No, this kind of video game. Modern Warfare 2, a kind of multiplayer movie, took over $500 million in its first 5 days on the market. Described by one reviewer as a tone poem on warfare, it's extremely violent. And one morally ambiguous scene where the protagonist, undercover with a terrorist gang, must shoot civilians in an airport, earned it an R18 certificate here. Which wasn't good enough for Michael Laws, who made the GamePolitics.com website by slamming the chief censor for letting in the game and declaring that
if mass murder was ever to be committed in this country, it would be committed by a gamer.
But while many popular games involve the idea of combat, not all are so violent. The massively multiplayer role-playing game, that's MMORPG YOL for PCs, World of Warcraft, has 11.5 million paying subscribers. EVE Online, run from Iceland, is a venue for a smaller audience and much bigger questions.
The creators of the game, EVE, invented a game about law and politics, peace and war. As the game designers believe in social democracy, they called for an election among the world's space inhabitants.
And then there's Second Life, which is mostly for perverts and architecture students.
You want to bring that hot little body of yours online so that I can jump it? Andrea is a very astute businesswoman, adept customer service. She's kind of our frontline PR person.
Meanwhile, an old game from the creators of Warcraft, StarCraft, has become almost the national sport in Korea, with star players, frenzied commentary, and stadium crowds. And then, as Charlie Brooker explains in Games Wipe, one of a half-dozen British TV shows devoted to the medium, there are games for people who don't really play games.
The release of the Beatles Rock Band game is a true watershed moment for video games because it's probably got the biggest crossover appeal of any game ever, apart from that one where you push smiling class in the canal.
So it's a huge global business that employs top creative talent and is part of the lives of millions of people. So why doesn't gaming get any respect? With me now to discuss the games medium, its pitfalls and its potential are award-winning IT reporter at the Press, Gerard Campbell. On Twitter, he's Game Junkie NZ. Local hip-hop star and games reviewer at Real Groove, David Dallas. And Kiwi FM breakfast host Glenn Whammo Williams, who is forever bothering his Twitter friends with tales of his Xbox exploits. Welcome, gentlemen. Gerard, you've played Modern Warfare 2. What do you make of it? Delivered on expectations?
I think it did. I mean, Modern Warfare was always going to be a big game anyway. The scene was set with Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, and Modern Warfare 2 just develops that story, and it's very much a blockbuster. You know, it's almost set up like little action movies throughout the length of the game, and I mean, I've told people it's a roller coaster ride from the start to the finish. You know, you finish the game and you do have to take a breath and think, yeah, that was a full-on experience. So yeah, I think in certain respects it definitely lived up to the hype.
Can you explain for the uninitiated what the gameplay is and something like that? Because it looks like you're just watching an animated movie, computer-generated movie. Where is the gameplay? What do you do?
A game like Modern Warfare 2, it's a first-person shooter, so you know that's classic games like Doom and those sorts of things. And you know, the line is blurring now between an interactive movie and the game. They're so realistic now. You know, character animations are actually realistic, and so I think that the line is blurring. And you know, these days
you still didn't answer my question. What do you do?
Well, pretty much you shoot people. I mean, the Modern Warfare 2 setup, it's a war. It's a modern war, and you're an American soldier and British soldier, and you're saving the world. And I think for a lot of gamers, that's a good thing to do. It lives out those fantasies. I think that you're saving the world from the foreign horrors.
And you call it a blockbuster. That's almost putting it mildly. $500 million in 5 days. That's more than the last Harry Potter movie made.
Yes, it is, and I think that's testimony to how big the industry is now. That it is actually surpassing Hollywood. I think in terms of sales and that sort of thing. I mean, your Modern Warfare 2, for example, I think it took 2 years to make, and they spent $60 to $70 million on making this game. So they've got budgets which are on par with Hollywood movies. They've got top-level voice actors. You've got Hollywood actors who are now actually clamouring to provide voices for the game. So I think it's become a legitimate art form and an entertainment form for a lot of people.
David, you work in one field of popular culture and write about another one, games.
Yeah.
How do the two interact with each other?
As far as I don't think either. Well, basically, music has no influence on video games. I mean, as far as the content of it or what goes on in it. And I feel like people kind of gas up video games' influence on people, because as far as things that actually influence kids to do anything, I'd say in the term, if you were to put movies, music, video games, I'd say video games would be right at the bottom, And yet
what you hear all the time from community leaders in, say, South Auckland, in the list of things that cause street violence, video games are always there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, kids play Ratchet and Clank, they're not like, I want to be a rabbit when I grow up, you know what I mean? There's no personal, there still has to be some sort of human element that you actually aspire to be. So, as much as criticism is leveled at hip-hop music or, any other sort of form, Marilyn Manson or whatever, this breeds mental, people are saying. I'd say, as much as I'm not influenced by music, I'm even less influenced by video games. They don't make me want to do anything, Yeah, even though I can get into a game and shoot people up, it doesn't, has no effect on me.
Well, I was fascinated to hear the story of your manager. I heard him on the radio describing it, following one of his favourite rappers on Twitter. Saw the call to everyone jump online and play a game of Grand Theft Auto 4, and he gets in and he gets to not only play with his hero, he gets to kill him.
Yeah.
That's an intriguing crossover between mediums.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't know if he actually killed him. There was this.
Well, that was what he was bragging about, I believe.
But yeah, I get it just shows how broad the appeal is of video games. Everyone is playing it, from. And now you're of generations where, my generation, I can't remember a time where there wasn't video games. So we've all grown up playing them, and that's just what everyone does now.
Wemo, did you grow up playing video games?
Yeah, I did. I bought my first game console, I think, as a 12-year-old. Saved up money doing paper rounds, and I bought a Commodore 64 second-hand, and got the TV that went with it, and a stack of games. But what really interested me at that stage was manipulating the games, because they weren't closed. You could get in there, change things, or even take a look at the code of a game and reprogram it yourself, which I thought was extraordinary.
Which is interesting, because what we're talking about with Modern Warfare 2, there is a PC version, no one plays it. We're talking about console games, which are pretty locked down. You can't get in and change them.
Yeah, that's right. That's the big difference between, say, PC games and console games. I mean, I went through a period in my life where I was a big PC gamer. I'd play a lot of strategy or God Sim type games. Dune 2000 was one of my favourites, where you'd have a planet and you'd try and dominate it and take over it, build bases and learn the fundamentals of actually running a city, getting resources, building armies, that kind of stuff. But the big difference between that and consoles is that the hardware requirements for PCs often outgrow whatever you have, because the games coming in are more advanced. And so but with consoles, it's very closed down, so you can't go in there and manipulate it and outgrow the hardware that you're using. Yeah.
So you're now more of a console gamer?
I am, really, just because I can't keep up with what's going on PCs. Yeah, with the requirements that you actually need.
So what are your favourites? Are you a first-person shooter guy?
I do like my first-person shooter. I haven't played the new Modern Warfare 2. I played the first one, and I'm still halfway through that. I'm stuck on the ground waiting for a helicopter to come at the moment. I can't. I get shot every time, so I can't get past that. But I'm really enjoying because David, you're saying music doesn't play a big part? Because it does. I find it does play a big part in games now.
I mean, like in terms of like soundtracks and stuff, yeah, it's great. Yeah, and also like you're seeing that it now like artists are selling music based on being in a video game, like the same way as like placement, you know, a sync in a TV show or a movie used to sell a song. Now, you know, if you're a rapper and you're on the new Fight Night, you're on the new NBA game, you know, you're guaranteed to sell something.
And just on the weekend, I went and bought the full instrument pack for Rock Band 2, or Rock Band, the original Rock Band. And yeah, it's got the drum kit, a guitar, a microphone, and it really is just living out a fantasy. You know, I'll never be a musician, I'll never be able to play guitar, I'll never be able to play drums, but I can do the basics of that with this game and play songs from my youth that, you know, I might have jumped up and down on the bed and pretended that I could play at the time back then, and now actually acting out that fantasy.
And the interesting thing is, if you've got the full instrument set, then you can have a party, all your friends.
That's right, and that's the other thing. It's so social now. Not only that, you know, something like SingStar or Lips or Rock Band, where you've got a party atmosphere in your living room, but also online as well. Whether it be Xbox or with PC gaming or PlayStation, you can connect with people that you know or don't know on the other side of the world, and talk with them in real time and play with them in real time. So this whole idea about gamers being nerds and, you know, in the back room and, you know, Four Eyes and you know, antisocial, because I think the antisocial has been tagged with gamers for a long, long time, is just not true. It's a very social thing now. Facebook is another example. Gaming and Facebook, you think of Farmville or Mafia Wars, love them or hate them, you know, millions of people are playing these, and they're extremely social. You play them with people that you know.
Gerard, you know, we're talking about games as the new movies, as being bigger than Hollywood. We've now got that expansion into games that facilitate, you know, parties, basically. Are we ever going to see the range of, say, genres that you see in movies? I mean, because basically the big titles are shoot-'em-ups, aren't they?
Well, I mean, I think from what I've sort of read, that the shoot-'em-ups seem to be the ones that get the most attention, but I think they only make a very small proportion of the number of games that are produced. I mean, I think as Glenn said, I mean, you've got your social games like Rock Band and Guitar Hero, but and I think that the Nintendo Wii has done a lot for casual social gaming. You know, because now you're getting families playing together, and you know, the classic is that Wiis are really popular at old people's homes because they facilitate, you know, with the motion sensor controller, that they're letting you know, movement and freedom. So I think in terms of the content, I think, yeah, gaming has broadened to a whole new social level.
You've even got Wii Fit, which is a platform and some software to, you know, for fitness exercises, which I found somewhat intrusive. It kept asking me questions about my health.
But I mean, Nintendo also bringing out something called the Vitality Sensor, which is it's almost like a heart rate monitor which clips onto your finger, and I don't know how they're going to implement that, but I think that companies like Nintendo are actually forward-thinking into how they can perhaps branch out the whole gaming to even further realms, I think, to sort of further possibilities.
Where's the medium going then?
I think the next step is probably, there's a game for the James Cameron's Avatar movie coming out, and that's actually using 3D technology. I've seen it running on a 3D television. You have to put on your special 3D glasses, and it's actually giving you a proper 3D effect. You know, you're flying spacecraft around, you can actually almost touch the rotors, and I think that once 3D televisions become more commonplace and not so expensive, and I understand too that in the future Sony's going to implement 3D capabilities on the PlayStation 3, I think that the next step will be, you know, that more 3D immersion feeling that you're actually getting, that you are becoming part of that game. You're not just you know, a participant from the outside, but you're actually feeling enveloped and immersive in that environment. And whether that's virtual reality or, you know, we all know about the virtual reality mask that they had 20 years ago, that very block figure and stick-like. But I think that could be the next progression, that it's probably a more immersive 3D environment.
One thing that strikes me about all this is that, you know, the technological boundaries are being pushed, but have any of you ever played a New Zealand-produced video game?
I have.
Which one was it?
I've played Shatter by She.
Yes, She Interactive in Wellington, who are the big firm.
Yeah, they are. But I mean, that's an interesting aspect, because I don't think there are a lot of people in New Zealand who don't game, who know that there is a thriving game development industry in the country. There are some studios in Auckland who are doing games, and there's also a studio in Christchurch which are producing stuff for the Wii. So I think there is actually an industry growing, and I think in a few years people will realise that it's not just Europe or Japan or the United States, because of course Japan is well known for producing video games. I think in a few years' time people will actually realise that there are some really strong studios coming from New Zealand that are developing good quality games.
And even if the games aren't coming from New Zealand, I think you'll find that in a lot of game developer studios around the world, there are a lot of New Zealanders in there.
The big one being Chris Butcher, the creator of Halo, who came from Central Otago.
Yeah.
And there's also a chap who works for Insomniac, who did Resistance and those sorts of games, who's an artist in there. So I think you're right, Glenn, there are a lot more Kiwis who I think some of them are probably learning their skills here, and then they're branching out and actually really getting involved.
And looking at another platform, say the iPhone as another gaming platform, there's not necessarily studios producing games, but individuals producing games in New Zealand for the iPhone as well, and applications as well.
I mean, David, you did computer science at university and then went into music. Can you see game development being something that kids aspire to?
Yeah, definitely. Like I see it in my nephew. Like he spends, but I mean, as we were talking about Wii Fit and all this stuff, admittedly, even coming from myself who played video games all my life, it's still kind of scary. Like looking at kids, like I look at my nephew and all he does is spend time playing video games. And after school, I'll look outside and I'll see no kids on the street. All the kids are inside playing video games. And it's like, it's kind of scary even to me.
Has it made it cooler to be geeky? I was surprised at Armageddon, the range of people there.
I don't know if it's cooler, it's just common. Like it's, the same way as everyone watches TV. You just don't look at people sideways if they say they play video games, the same way as you don't, you'd look sideways at someone who said he didn't watch TV.
I think at one stage it would have been geeky for someone to be on Facebook, but now that's mainstream. I think that things start off on the fringe and then they just become mainstream.
I mean, I think that Glenn said before, probably 20 years ago you had that classic geeky, unsociable person in the basement with the hoodie on and the dark lights. But I think now, that gamers are, they're normal people. They're, might be your neighbour. They're, all the people that I know that are game, they're respectable people. They're, they're normal people. So the stereotype is gone on what a gamer is.
Yeah, totally.
So what's gaming, just last question, what's gaming taking people's time away from? Are they watching less TV, reading fewer books? What are they not doing?
Well, I mean, I think for me personally, I do watch less TV. I think that's probably because there's not a lot of quality stuff on TV, apart from the show here, of course. But I think that it is. I think that it's things like Facebook and it's social gaming. I think that it's, society is shifting, whereas a few years ago it would have been TV would have been the thing. Now it's shifted to interactive entertainment. I think that's only going to move on from there.
We will have to leave it here, but I'm sure this is not the last time we'll visit this topic. And that is all for this discussion. Thanks to Gerard Campbell, David Dallas and Wemo. After the break, we look at the media's performance on failing finance companies. Thanks, guys.